On this edition of Early Look, I'm going to be previewing the main event for UFC Houston coming up here February 21st with Anthony Hernandez and Sean Strickland. My name is James Lynch. If you've never watched the show before, I'm going to go through a bunch of different stats and intangibles. Then I'm going to give you my prediction for this fight at the end of the video. Some of this stuff may have relevance to you. It may not. I just like looking through all the data points when it comes to breaking down fights, and that's what we're going to do here today. And like we normally do on this show, I'm going to go through a quick tale of the tape between these two, and then we'll dig into both fighters. Sean Strickland, the former champ, is 29-7. Anthony Hernandez is 15-2, 34-32. So a bit of an age gap there. 6'1" to 6 feet tall, 76-75. So physically very similar. Records wise, Strickland's got more experience. Strickland also a couple of years older than Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Well, let's start first with the former middleweight champion, Sean Strickland. Another 5-round fight for him. And you look at it there, I mentioned the record, 29-7. He's got 11 knockouts, 4 submissions, and 14 decisions. Currently ranked number 3 in the middleweight division. 34 years old, 6'1" with a 76-inch reach. He'll have a 1-inch height and 1-inch reach advantage in this fight. He's a BJJ black belt training out of Extreme Couture. He's the former middleweight champion. He's got fight of the night 1 time against Dricus du Plessis. He's got performance of the night 3 times against Brendan Allen, Abus Magomedov, and Israel Adesanya. Did not have an amateur debut. Went straight to the pros way back in March of 2008. Made that UFC debut back in March of 2014. And hasn't looked back. He's got a 16-7 UFC record. He's got 5 stoppage victories. Some notable wins include Brendan Allen, Jack Hermanson, Nasruddin Imavov, Israel Adesanya, and Paulo Costa. Some notable losses include Santiago Ponzinibbio, Kamaru Usman, Alex Pereira, Jared Cannonier, and 2 losses to Dricus du Plessis. He's had a bunch of layoffs in his career. Let's go through those quickly because I do think that has relevance in this fight. Going from Luke Barnett to Ponzinibbio way back in 2015. I mean, this is over a decade ago. He had a 267-day layoff. Going from Tom Breeze to Kamaru Usman, there was a 308-day layoff, and then the big one was the motorcycle accident that was back in shortly after that Nordine Taleb fight. There was a 735-day layoff going from Nordine Taleb to Jack Marshman, and again, that's where Strickland almost didn't get to fight again. He had that really bad motorcycle accident. Going from Paulo Costa to Dricus du Plessis, there was a 252-day layoff, and then going from DDP to Anthony Hernandez, there'll be a 379-day layoff. So this will be the second longest layoff of Strickland's career going into this fight, which is something worth noting. Strickland's had a couple close fights throughout his career. Most notably, there was the Jared Cannonier fight. I mean, we're not going to go through all of them, but there was the 2 fights he had. So the first one that people sort of reference is the Jared Cannonier split decision loss. If you go look on MMA decisions right now, 13 media members scored the fight for Cannonier, 7 scored it for Strickland, so majority did feel like Cannonier deserved the win. And then there was the du Plessis fight at UFC 297, I should say, another split decision loss. That one was a bit closer. Media members scoring that one 13 to DDP, 10 media members scoring it for Strickland. So again, people talk about that maybe being a robbery. Majority of media in both cases felt like Sean deserved to lose against Jared Cannonier and Dricus du Plessis. Let's go look at Strickland's stats. Strikes landed per minute, 5.95, pretty high. That's always good. Striking accuracy is at 42%. His striking defense is at 60%, so it doesn't get hit that much. Takedown average is 0.73. Takedown accuracy is at 64%. And this is a key stat here. Takedown defense, 76%. That's pretty high. So Sean Strickland not getting taken down that much. His sub-average is 0.2. We don't really see much of the ground game. So that is everything you need to know about Sean Strickland going into this fight. Now let's take a closer look at his opponent, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. I mentioned the 15-2 record there. He's got 3 knockouts, 9 submissions, and 3 decisions. Currently ranked number 4 in the middleweight division. He's 32 years old, 6 foot tall, with a 73-inch reach. So the only advantage he'll have is that he's 2 years younger. He's got performance of the night 4 times against Rodolfo Vieira, Roman Kopylov, Michel Pereira, and Roman Dolidze. He's got the most takedowns landed in UFC middleweight division history. He's also a BJJ brown belt and trains at an MMA Gold and a bit of cross-training over there at Team Alpha Male as well. Had an amateur debut way back in October of 2011. Actually went 9-1 as an amateur, which was really interesting here. Made his pro debut shortly after that in September of 2014. Made that UFC debut coming off Contender Series in February of 2019. Hernandez is 10-2 in the UFC. He's got 7 stoppage victories. Interestingly enough, went 1-2 to start his UFC career. Remember those losses to Marcus Perez and Kevin Holland. Hasn't lost since then, which is pretty interesting. Not since the Holland fight. Notable wins include Brendan Allen. He actually has 2 wins over Brendan Allen. So he beat Brendan Allen last year at UFC Seattle, but he also beat Brendan Allen on the regional scene back at LFA 32. That was a middleweight title fight in 2018, a fight that he ended up capturing gold in that one. So I wanted to mention that. Also has wins over Edmund Shabazian, who was ranked at one point, Roman Kopylov, who was ranked at one point, Michel Pereira, and Roman Dolidze in his last fight as well. His only notable loss really is Kevin Holland. I wouldn't really count Marcus Perez a notable loss, but it still is a loss nonetheless. He's had a bunch of layoffs in his career, much like Strickland, not to the same extent, but going from Kevin Holland to Rodolfo Vieira, there was a 273-day layoff. Going from Vieira to Josh Fremd, there was a 420-day layoff. Going from Shabazian to Kopylov, there was a 273-day layoff. And then going from Dolidze to Strickland, just 165 days. Remember, he was supposed to fight in October against Reiner de Ritter, was still recovering from a rib injury he had in the Dolidze fight. So that's just something to sort of keep in mind when looking at that. Hernandez has not had any close fights. His only decision wins were Fremd and Allen, and those were, pretty decisive as far as that goes. And then if we look at his stats, obviously the strikes are going to be a lot lower than Sean Strickland. 4.59 significant strikes landed per minute, 62% striking accuracy. Striking defense is 49%. That's interesting, right? So that's a bit lower. So he does get hit a little bit in fights. Takedown average, though, look at this, 6.46. Compared that to Strickland at just, what was his number? 0.73. So Strickland not going for takedowns too often. 48% takedown accuracy. Takedown defense is 68%, also very high. And a sub-average is 1.8. And we do have some odds for this fight at the time I'm recording this. A majority of books having Anthony Hernandez as... majority of people have Anthony Hernandez at about almost a 3-1 favorite here, minus 245 in the book. Some books having him minus 295 with the comeback on Sean Strickland around plus 200, plus 186. And if we look on Tapology right now, as far as the fan voting goes, and again, anyone can do this, so there's no money involved. 70% of people picking Hernandez, 30% people picking Strickland, 66.6% picking Hernandez by decision. You've got 28.1% by submission and 5.3% by KO TKO. With Strickland, 11% picking him by KO TKO, and then 87.7% by decision. So which way am I leaning in this one? This is tough. Like, I will say, and I say this every now and then when I feel this way, I think the odds are off here. I think that Hernandez should not be this much of a favorite. I get that Strickland's coming off, a couple losses. But I see this as closer to like a pick'em. And if you want to go Hernandez as the favorite, I'm fine with that. But I would put him at like a minus 150, minus 200. I don't think it's that much of a wide gap. And I also will point out that I really like Anthony Hernandez. I've been very high on him. I picked him in most of his fights, and I've had a lot of success with that. So I am going to go with Anthony Hernandez here by decision in this as far as my prediction for this fight. And here are a couple of reasons why. Okay, so first and foremost, I think that... Well, let's talk about Sean Strickland's durability. He's only ever been finished once at middleweight, and that was against Alex Pereira, and that was Pereira knocking him out, right? Anthony Hernandez is not going to have that same threat. Strickland has also never been submitted in 38 career fights. Anthony Hernandez might be the first guy to do it, but I have a hard time seeing. I think Strickland's ground game is good enough where I don't think he will get submitted by Anthony Hernandez. Now, if you look at the majority of the way that Hernandez wins, 60% of his wins, 9 of his wins total are by submission. He's fighting a guy that's never been submitted. That's going to be kind of tough, right? If that takes place. Now, let's look at how Hernandez is finishing his opponents. You look at they're usually a little bit late, right? So Michel Pereira was a 5th round finish. Rear naked choke. Dolidze was a 4th round finish. I would argue in the Dolidze fight, the only reason he was able to submit Dolidze in that one, I mean, I do think he's the better fighter, but Dolidze gassed out in that fight. He's not going to have that same advantage against Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland's got very good cardio. We've seen him go 5 rounds multiple times, still put the gas on the pedal and all that stuff. So that's something worth noting. The reason I bring this up is because if he's finishing these guys late, like Dolidze and Pereira, I have a hard time seeing him do it against a guy like Strickland who's got really good cardio. I don't think that'll be much of an issue. And Pereira also gassed out a bit in their fight too. So that's something to keep in mind. I really think this fight's going the distance. If you wanted to bet this fight, I think it's almost a guarantee it goes the distance. I really don't see a finish from either guy. Strickland's the same way. Strickland does not finish a lot of his opponents, right? You look at, most of his wins, they are going the full distance. So that's something to keep in mind here. Now, the two stats that stood out, I already talked about them. The first one is the striking defense from Fluffy Hernandez is 49%. That's not good. That's a bit concerning. This was something I talked about in the Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje breakdown a couple weeks back, which I got that pick wrong, but I did point out that Paddy does get hit a lot, and that's a bit concerning. So same thing applies here. While I am picking Hernandez, that does worry me. Now, on the flip side, and then on the flip side as well, that supports Strickland a little bit more, Strickland's got 76% takedown defense. So if Hernandez can't get him down and it's staying standing, I think Strickland will win this fight. Now, I did pick Hernandez. Here's why. I do think the fact that he's a bit younger, the fact that I think there's still some untapped potential with him. And the other thing I'll point out too, I don't think Hernandez has been 100% healthy in a lot of his fights. We heard about the rib injury after the Dolidze fight. We know in the Brendan Allen fight that, because I found this out from his coach and just talking to him anyways, he, was on antibiotics for most of that camp with Brendan Allen. That's why he didn't look that great in that fight, and also had an injury as well. So he was a bit compromised. My understanding is, just talking to his coach, because I interviewed him before this fight, is that he's like good to go, no issues, nothing like that. So I think we could see an even better version than Hernandez. And in some ways, I'm kind of betting on that. Not to mention the fact he's a little bit younger. And he's got some momentum right now. I'm a big believer in that. Strickland really needs to win this fight. He's coming off, like I said, well, I shouldn't say a couple losses. He's coming off one loss, but he's lost 2 of his last 3 fights. And granted, it's against the same guy, but that's something to point out. Now, one other thing I'll just add to this, and again, I like to tell you guys everything, so it's not just like, I'm leaving certain things out to go a certain way. Another thing that does concern me about this fight and picking Hernandez is that Sean Strickland, from what I heard from people close to his camp, that he almost pulled out of that DDP fight. My understanding was he had a shoulder injury, and that's also why he was not being very aggressive against DDP. And remember all the fan talk, oh, this guy talks all tough, but he won't, engage. Well, it's because he had an injury and he almost pulled out. But if you get given a title shot, you got to take it, right? You can't just pull out, because then it's next guy up, and then you get put to the back of the line, as we've seen time and time again. So if you're basing everything, I think that's part of the reason why Hernandez is such a big favorite in this fight, with him being minus 245, is because people are banking on the Strickland that was in the DDP fight. And I'm telling you guys, we're going to see a better version than what we saw in that fight. I think we'll see a guy that looked like he looked in the first Duplessis fight, which was much closer. That's what I think. So yeah, I think it's going to be razor close, but again, I'm leaning slightly Hernandez, just because I think there's a bit more potential there. I think he will be able to get some takedowns. I think he will be able to put him against the cage. And I think Hernandez will be able to turn this into more of a grappling match than turn it into a striking battle. But like I said, if he can't get the takedowns, if he can't get Strickland down, if he can't, implement that pace that he's got, then I think Hernandez, if Hernandez can't do that and it stays standing, I think Strickland will win. But I think Hernandez will be able to get him down. And I will say this too. I don't think Sean's met his match in the cardio department with a guy like Hernandez. Like, yes, DDP can obviously have a gas tank too, but I just think Hernandez, his cardio and his grappling and all that is going to be too much. I think he takes a decision, but I think it will be very close. Again, I know I'm like almost talking myself out of this pick, but it's like, I just see this fight a lot closer than people think, but ultimately at the end of the day, I am going to be going with Fluffy Hernandez. So let me know in the comments which way you're leaning on this one. Let me know how you see this fight playing out. Would love to hear from you. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, at Lynch on Sports. And if there's any other fights you want me to preview that are coming up, it doesn't have to be like a main event or title fight or anything like that. Just let me know. I'm more than happy to hear if there's fights you guys are into and you want me to break down. Happy to do that. My name is James Lynch. I really appreciate you guys watching this. I'll talk to you guys next time on Early Look. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.